Hi, it's Tony again, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, we're going to be doing a special video on cleaning chrome and metal pieces for all your vintage reels. This happens to be off of a Penn 209 level wind reel that, as you can see, I have currently disassembled. But I wanted to do a separate video on just these metal pieces because this pretty much applies for all of those classic reels that a lot of us are quite familiar with, that have all these chrome-like pieces, but they have corrosion or pitting damage and things like that. So I wanted to kind of go into depth and detail in this particular video with that. So we're just going to pull all these pieces out. So these have been soaking with some WD-40 recently for the past several minutes here, actually. And these pieces aren't in terrible shape, but they could use a little bit of attention. So we're just going to pull all these out, and we're going to have a look at them. And I'm going to kind of go through some of the little steps that I like to do. So there's some real basic things, household products that I like to use when working with this kind of stuff. Blue Scotch pad, non-scratch type. That's the blue kind. I like to use these. I like to use the fine steel wool, like the number 4 steel wool, the finest that you can get, because you don't want to scar any of these metal pieces. And so using those things, sometimes the help of toothbrushes helps. And then I also like to deploy some rubbing compound or some other kind of metal polish of some kind. But I like using this a lot myself. So the first thing I like to do after I get it out of the WD-40, all these kinds of pieces, is I like to take my steel wool and I want to break down any surface grit that's on there right away. And I find that just having the light film of WD-40 is enough in combination with this to really break that up. The other thing that the WD-40 is good for is it helps prevent further rust down the road if there is any pitting. Of course, you need to keep it up if that's the case, because once that pitting begins and the rust begins, it's pretty difficult to stop it unless you're just really good about keeping your reel clean all the time. So, and then I also like to have a microfiber towel on hand, a clean one, like so. But I can already tell, like this stand mount here is really not too bad a shape. You know, it's shining up real nice. And so I like to just do that pretty much for all these pieces here. So we'll do the same thing with our rings. But I do see quite a bit of reels that have this kind of damage, and I've had people ask me, how do you clean up your chrome pieces so good? And this is pretty much the process that I like to use. It's cheap, it's effective, and the only other real alternative is to get new parts. And you can get parts for some reels, such as the 209, but it might be harder and harder to come by the actual chrome. This is actually brass metal that's been chromed over but these days most of these parts and components for these vintage pieces are brushed stainless steel, which is good for the rust factor and all that, but not so good for the shine necessarily, that brilliant shine that you get. So as you can see on this ring, I mean, it's definitely shiny, but unfortunately, you know, there's nothing that we can do about that. That's just going to be that way, these little blemishes, but it's not going to obviously affect the functionality of the reel, so we're not going to worry about that. And then we've got our spool, of course, and this spool is in really good shape. I'm not seeing any scarring or hardly any pitting or anything like that on here. This reel belonged to a coworker friend of mine, and he wound up giving it to me because he didn't really want it anymore. And the 209 is just a solid reel. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is that there's some signs of some old grease here, like on the inner housing here. So we just kind of want to wipe all that off, get that cleaned up real good, because you don't want those contaminants in your spool. Okay, not bad. Sometimes I like to hit the steel wool here on the shaft just to get off any other contaminants that are on there. We'll just keep going right along with that light film of WD-40. You can use other penetrating type oils too, Power Lube or other products, but I think good old WD-40 is good, and it's good for a lot of different reasons, because it cleans, it protects, it loosens things up. So it's kind of the best of all worlds right there. But this process you can do on pretty much any metal pieces, right? So if you have a vintage reel that you want to clean up that has these metal components, you can do that. And you know, this one's coming out pretty good. It's got that nice mirror-like shine to it already. And you can see that our shield, our worm drive shield for the level wind mechanism has got a little bit of mud, a little bit of corrosion. It's not too bad, but it definitely has some noticeable effects to it. So we're just gonna try to clean that up the best that we can. It's not too bad. We've got our star wheel, of course, for our drag system. I think this is going to clean up pretty good. I'm just going to kind of go through all these little pieces here real quick. And yeah, steel wool is just a great tool for this, but again, you want to use like the number 4, the real fine steel wool. You don't want to use heavy steel wool, because it will scratch and scar up your pieces, and it's just going to make them look ugly. And more than likely don't want that. In terms of acquiring brand new parts though, however, sometimes you can look out on eBay. Sometimes you can find a parts reel that just has immaculate looking chrome on it because it was never used or something to that effect. More power to you if you can find those deals. mysticparts.com is a great source for brand new, true Penn parts. But again, a lot of these kinds of things now are primarily made from stainless steel instead of the chromed brass as it once was. So there will be a little bit of difference in the appearance. But the stainless steel is lighter, so some people prefer that, but it'll also withstand the salt and the salt spray better. So this frame post here in particular definitely has some signs of pitting. As you can see, it's definitely been exposed, but it's not too bad though. So, you know, it's not going to affect any operation. I definitely like to hit up my handle, my torpedo handle, with some of this here. Just loosen up any stuff that's on there. Okay, so now we're just gonna take a microfiber towel to all these pieces here real quick, just so we can kind of clean them up. I definitely want to clean out the inside of this shield and get any contaminants that are in there out. But yeah, so far all these pieces are pretty clean. given the age of the reel and whatnot. So clean our sleeve off here. So now what we can do is we'll just I'll demonstrate what I like to do with this rubbing compound here so you can kind of get a sense of that. I've seen some people use chrome polishes and other automotive type products. Nothing wrong with that. But I like to just put a little dab of this rubbing compound on here. Take your blue Scotch pad and just really work that in there. If you're really looking for shine, this is going to do it, basically. And essentially, these parts are going to be as good as they can be, which is primarily what we're going for. So it's really not going to get much better than that unless you find brand new pieces. So you can see the result, and it works. So I'll just kind of do the same thing here on this ring and some of these other pieces. Yeah, I've tried some other household products. They're not quite as good as this rubbing compound. And some people might think too, well, why go through all this effort? Why not just clean the reel off and call it a day? You know what? Nothing wrong with that too. But if you're into restoring these vintage pieces and making them as clean as you can, especially if you're going to like resell them or something like that, appearances definitely count. So that's why we're doing this. So we're just going to go through a couple more pieces here, and then we'll get back to reassembling everything on this reel. I have heard about people using ultrasonic cleaners, which I still have yet to experiment with, but definitely sounds like a good idea. It'd probably be a time saver, I imagine, especially if you've got a lot of broken down pieces that have a lot of layers of dirt and grime on them, so to speak. Yeah, you really want that to work in there if you really want to get that surface cleaned up. So, looks pretty good. Let's do a couple more pieces here. But real simple, not too time consuming. When you have one of these reels that's nice and shiny, you can take it on out fishing and just be proud that it looks clean and that it's shining on the water. Okay, so we got our star drag wheel and our handle. What I'll do here real quick is just put all these pieces and parts here on this cleaner towel so you can see them. I'm just going to move the spool and the frame post off to the side a little bit. So that's the end result there, basically, and that's pretty much all there is to it. You got a nice mirror-like shine on these pieces, and they're ready to go. So thanks for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.